Today, Loose Women and ITV want to encourage you to open up about your mental health as part of Time to Talk Day. Research shows having a conversation about mental health has the power to make a big difference. And we saw this with our award-winning Lighten the Load campaign and Britain Get Talking. But we asked you whether the pandemic had made it harder to talk about your feelings, and over half of you, 57%, said yes. So this morning, we shared the moment. We said, I'm not okay. So, Judi, what was yours?
I remember it was when my mum had passed away, and, my mum passed away. I was 9 months pregnant. I split up with my kid's dad all, in the same week. So I obviously had, delayed grief. And about 10 months later, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel right. I just, nothing, I can't even explain it. It's just a really heavy burden, feeling, disappointing myself, not feeling that I looked good. I didn't feel happy, really drained. And I battled with it for a little while because I felt like, for me, it was like, oh, I'm a strong black woman. I'm always there for my friends and family. And that thought of, depression, you don't want to use that word. You don't want to have that conversation with anybody. And I remember just getting to a stage where, I can't continue feeling like this. I have to speak to somebody, but being scared to go to a doctor or being scared to tell the wrong person. And I remember just sitting on my bed, and I was tired of crying and people phoning me and saying to me, oh, you're all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But 10 minutes ago, I was crying my heart out. The pain was just there. And I sat in my bed and I said, I'm gonna do something that I haven't done before, and I'm going to text my closest friends.
Can you remember what you said to?
Yeah, and my sister. And I text saying that, look, guys, I'm struggling. I don't feel good. I feel depressed, and I'm going to tell you guys, as my closest people, I need you. I need that support. And I just texted it. And that moment before I texted it was like, I almost felt like, am I going to let my mum down, because I've got to be strong now. Am I going to, let my kids down? Am I going to show a different side of me, of my vulnerability that I'm too scared to show? But I sent it anyway. And that battle, I feel like sending it saved me, because...
It all just clicked in, didn't it?
It connected in, the love I got back. And you know what really got me? That's why sometimes you meet people and there's a moment with someone. They're not someone close to you, but there's a moment. There was a lady that I worked with, Julia, when I worked in social care. And one of the friends I text was still kind of friends with her. And I said to my sister and my close friends, I need to get away. I need to go away. And I went to Barbados. I need you to have the kids. And this lady, who I'd never been to a house in England, we'd been work colleagues, her and her husband took me in their home. She said, come Barbados. They took me in my home. They fed me. They nurtured me emotionally. They took me around. They took me to the beach and let me sit on my own. They left me in the room but let it hurt. And I will never forget that.
Yeah.
And it
healed.
It healed. It was the healing.
Your soul, your body and your mind needed.
Yeah.
And it's by reaching out and sending that message.
Just sending that.
Because the alternative doesn't bear thinking about.
Yeah.
And in terms of... Kelly, in terms of reaching out and a sea of people sort of coming, or a couple coming and holding you up and almost nurturing you, like Judi talked about, that happened with you as well, didn't it?
Yeah, it happened sort of when I was out of the band around sort of 98, because I got ill, I lost my job, obviously got sacked from the band and lost my job, and I got ill, and everything sort of happened at once. And I was in a coercive relationship, which meant that financially it sort of crippled me. And I was, debt started to mount up. And I didn't really feel like I could go anywhere or talk to anyone, because you feel ashamed that, you're in this band, you've got this amount of, success and da-da-da-da-da. And because, it'd been written in the papers that, oh, she's been sacked, and then what's she going to do next, and all of this stuff. So I got myself into a real bind where I felt too frightened to ask for help, because one, I thought people were just going to laugh at me or, put me down, oh, you had all this money, where's it gone now?
Yeah.
But when you're in a coercive relationship and somebody, manipulates you to the point of, you'll do anything for them, I found myself in financial crisis. And when you're in that situation, you're too embarrassed to say, I need help, or the words, I'm not okay, because you feel like it's your own fault. And so people look at you as if to say, well, you've put yourself in this situation, you get yourself out of it. You know, if you're in grief or you've lost somebody, everybody has an understanding or compassion for that. But when it comes to debt management, or you've put, you know, people look at you as if you've put yourself in that situation, you don't feel like you're going to get that compassion coming back towards you. So I found it really difficult to sort of open up to my parents or my friends, because I was embarrassed. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I was partly responsible for where I had, you know, found myself. So, so for me, I would just encourage anybody out there that's found themselves in a situation, whether you feel like it's your fault or not, that isn't the point. The point is that you need help. And so I would encourage anybody, whether it's debt, whether it's loss, whether it's grief, whatever it is that's making you feel overwhelmed, you know, reach out. And we are going to be sharing helplines at the end of the show, to, you know, to places that you can go to get help.
It's interesting because you're so right about when it comes to loss and grief. And I think for me, the moment that I first reached out and realised that I needed to talk was when I became pregnant with my first child, with Alfie. I remember lying in the bath and absolutely bawling my eyes out, because it's like this wave of I'm about to become a mother and I don't have a mother because my mum isn't here anymore. And it was the sort of situation when I realised that I hadn't grieved properly. And my mum died when I was 21, 22, and I became pregnant when I was 36. So that's a long time to not have a conversation about that. But it was just the wave of grief suddenly just was all consuming. And it was a friend of mine, Tara, who suggested that I go and talk to a therapist about it. I'm not going to cry, I'm going to try really hard not to cry. And spoke to a therapist about it. And for three sessions, I think all I did for 3 sessions was just cry and share memories of my mum and just cry. And by the time I finished having those 3 sessions, suddenly this huge weight was lifted from me. And it felt as though at that moment, I sort of felt I can now become a mother, because I didn't feel like I could mother while still holding on to all this grief and not letting it out. And I'm sure there are so many people who have dealt with grief so much over the last year or so. And I think it's really important that if you are dealing with that, that you do talk, because holding on to that grief isn't healthy. And it can really affect every aspect of your life. Brenda, I was going to ask you next about your experience, but it's talking, isn't it? You really ought to talk about it, shouldn't you?
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Sorry,
Thanks very much
because
for
I can't talk anymore without getting emotional, so I just thought I'd throw it over to you.
You know, unfortunately, listening to all of you, you know, I'm the been there, done that, got the T-shirt, you know, and the amount of grief that I've had from the age of 4 when both my parents died to going through the cancer, and it is World Cancer Day, which is really nice for us to be able to say to all those people that are suffering or have loved ones suffering, there's always a time to talk. There's always somebody to listen. And with that in mind, I think that was when I started opening up to people when I got my diagnosis, because I kept it to myself for so long. And then I found a friend, you know, who I just started talking to me, and it was that question, are you all right? It just opened up the floodgates from nowhere. I don't know. I started crying. I explained to him what was going on, and unbeknown to me, you know, we're now really good friends, but unbeknown to me, his mother was going through cancer, and his business partner, she was going through cancer. There were 3 women in his life, and, you know, I found myself speaking to him because he'd been through that experience himself, and, you know, just to get that comfort from him, to get that strength. So, you know, I'm always one that's good for talking, but when I hear these things, I'm an emotional wreck.
Yeah, and I think if you're watching, you know, you see us every day doing the jobs that we do, and it's important that you guys know that we also sometimes need someone to reach out to have a talk. So never feel embarrassed and never feel like it's some kind of, it shows a kind of weakness if you don't talk. It really doesn't. No. It takes a huge amount of strength to admit that you're finding something difficult. And quite frankly, there are so many of you who are. So if you've been affected by anything that any of us have spoken about, please do go to our website where there is information and there is help available. Please do not be afraid to tell someone, I'm not okay. Now, we are